Have you ever noticed how some people only remember your worth when they feel you slipping away? When you stop reaching out, stop overgiving, stop excusing their behavior, that's when their tone suddenly softens. When someone starts acting nice all of a sudden, it isn't always kindness. Sometimes it's strategy. It's like a door that creaks open just as you're about to walk away. Not because the house changed, but because it sensed you finally had the courage to leave. Or think of a chessboard, silent, still, until your next move threatens their comfort. Then, suddenly they smile. They offer peace, not because they want it, but because they fear what happens if you keep playing wisely. Because when you stop reacting, when you stop chasing, people feel that shift. And those who once took you for granted, they panic. But it's not always regret. Sometimes it's control disguised as affection, manipulation disguised as apology. So what do you do when someone shifts overnight from distant to kind? Do you accept their words or study their timing? Because if you want to protect your peace, you'll need more than hope. You'll need clarity. Stay until the end, because the last one will show you exactly what their sudden sweetness really means. Let's get started. Number 1, they want something from you. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive behaviors you'll ever encounter. Someone who suddenly starts acting nice, not out of genuine warmth, but because they want something from you. This isn't kindness born from connection. It's manipulation disguised as charm. One day, they're indifferent or even dismissive. The next, they're complimenting you, checking in on you, laughing at your jokes a little too hard. And just when you start to let your guard down, there it is. The ask, the favor, the unexpected request. Their tone changes right before they need something, and their kindness suddenly starts to feel less like sincerity and more like strategy. Here's the truth. Sudden kindness often comes with hidden strings. It's not love, it's not respect, it's currency. And people who use charm this way are rarely doing it for your benefit. They're doing it to soften your resistance, to make it harder for you to say no. They know exactly what they're doing. They're not being nice because they've changed. They're being nice because they think it will get them what they want. It's a calculated move, not a genuine shift in heart. And when you step back and observe it without emotional attachment, the pattern becomes crystal clear. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca once warned, "He who flatters seeks to deceive. Let your eyes judge, not your ears." That's powerful. The Stoics understood that actions reveal more than words. A person's true intentions aren't in what they say, it's in what they consistently do. If someone's tone only warms up when they need a favor, that's not kindness. It's exploitation wrapped in politeness. And if you rely only on their words, you'll miss the warning signs. But if you observe their behavior, you'll see the pattern. Their affection always comes with an agenda. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Brandon, had a co-worker who never really acknowledged him. For months, this co-worker barely said hello. But one day, Brandon received an unexpected compliment. "Hey, I heard you're really good with presentations. You've got great flow." Flattered, Brandon thanked him. Not 10 minutes later, the co-worker asked if Brandon could help him prepare slides for a last-minute client meeting. That same co-worker, once the favor was done, went right back to ignoring him. No follow-up, no appreciation, no lasting warmth. Brandon realized something. The compliment wasn't real. It was a transaction. That's all it ever was. So how do you deal with people like this? First, observe before you engage. If their kindness feels out of place, pause and ask yourself what's changed. Second, measure their intent by consistency. Are they kind only when it benefits them? Do they disappear once their needs are met? And third, protect your boundaries. Just because someone is being nice doesn't mean you owe them anything. At the end of the day, real kindness is consistent, quiet, and selfless. But when someone's warmth suddenly appears only when they need something, believe what you see, not what you hear. Because if kindness is just a mask for manipulation, then your silence becomes your best response. Number 2, they're testing your boundaries. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive behaviors you'll ever encounter. Someone who suddenly starts acting nice all of a sudden, especially after a history of disrespect, distance, or indifference. This shift in behavior may feel confusing. One day they're cold or dismissive, the next they're warm, polite, even overly friendly. But before you take this as a sign of genuine change, pause, because sometimes that shift isn't growth, it's a test. When someone's behavior flips overnight, they may not be trying to make amends. They might be trying to see what they can get away with, how quickly you'll forget, how easily you'll forgive. Here's the truth. Inconsistent people often test your boundaries to see if they still have emotional access to you. It's not about reconciliation, it's about control. The kindness they show isn't consistent, it's strategic. They want to know, can I still charm my way back in? They're not interested in repairing what was broken. They're interested in whether or not they still have influence. They might act sweet, offer compliments, maybe even apologize, but watch closely, because their real motive becomes clear not in what they say, but in what they do after. If their behavior quickly returns to how it was before, as if nothing ever happened, it means their kindness was only a probe, a subtle way to test your emotional walls. This is where Stoic insight becomes vital. Epictetus said, "A wise man tests character by actions, not apologies." In other words, don't be fooled by words, especially when they arrive suddenly after a pattern of harm. A true change in character is steady and consistent, not sudden and suspicious. Stoicism teaches us to observe without attachment, to study patterns, not promises. When someone changes their behavior abruptly, your job is not to react, it's to watch, to evaluate whether their shift is authentic or just another tactic to get something from you. Let me share a story. A man named David had a longtime friend who often disappeared when life got hard. This friend would ghost him for months, only to reappear with jokes, charm, and a casual tone, acting like nothing happened. David used to welcome him back every time, grateful for the return, eager to believe the friendship had turned a corner. But the pattern never changed. One day, after another long absence, the friend came back overly friendly, praising David's success and asking to hang out again. But this time, David didn't respond emotionally. He paused. He noticed the timing. He remembered the silence that came before. And slowly, he realized this wasn't friendship returning. It was his boundaries being tested again. So what should you do when someone starts acting nice all of a sudden? First, don't rush to believe it's genuine. Observe without reacting. Second, look at their patterns. Are they consistent, or do they only show up when it benefits them? And third, honor your boundaries. If someone is testing them, make sure they know you're not easily manipulated. Because at the end of the day, kindness that's used as a tool to test your forgiveness isn't kindness at all. It's manipulation. And your peace of mind isn't something that should be handed over just because someone decided to flip the script. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 3. They want to control the narrative. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive behaviors you'll ever encounter. Someone who suddenly starts acting nice all of a sudden, especially after they've already hurt you. But this time, their kindness isn't just directed at you, it's performed in front of others. They speak well of you in public, they laugh at your jokes in a group, they post friendly photos, or they casually praise you around mutual friends. And if you've experienced their cruelty or indifference behind the scenes, this shift feels hollow, because it is. What you're witnessing isn't kindness, it's image management. When someone's reputation is at stake and they know they've mistreated you, they'll often switch tactics, not to make amends, but to make you look like the unreasonable one. Here's the truth. Some people don't seek reconciliation. They seek control of the story. If they've treated you poorly in private, they know you carry truth that could tarnish their image. So what do? They rewrite the narrative before you can. They start being overly kind, generous, even flattering, but only when people are watching. That way, if you ever speak up, they've already planted doubt. People might say, "Really? But they always seem so kind to you." Their goal is to make your truth seem exaggerated, emotional, or vengeful. By acting nice, they're not healing the damage, they're trying to discredit it. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes armor. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not be concerned with seeming good, be good." And that's the difference. A Stoic doesn't chase appearances, they chase virtue. They understand that goodness is not about public approval, it's about private integrity. When someone suddenly starts acting nice to shift perception, they're showing concern with looking right, not being right. And if you're not grounded in your own truth, it's easy to fall into the trap of doubting yourself. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Julia, had a manager who was harsh, dismissive, and undermining in one-on-one meetings. But during company events, this same manager would brag about Julia's work, introduce her warmly to executives, and act as though they had a close working relationship. Julia felt confused at first. Maybe she was misreading things, but she wasn't. The manager had realized others were starting to notice Julia's talent, and rather than be seen as a blocker, he positioned himself as her mentor. It wasn't support, it was strategy. He wanted the story to be that he lifted her up, not that he held her back. So how do you protect yourself? First, trust your experience. Just because they're performing kindness now doesn't erase how they treated you when no one was looking. Second, don't let public charm make you question private harm. And third, don't rush to correct the narrative. Just keep living your truth. Because at the end of the day, those who are truly good don't need to manage appearances. They let their actions speak, quietly, consistently, and without a spotlight. And the people who matter will always see the difference. Number 4, they're preparing to manipulate. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive behaviors you'll ever encounter. Someone who suddenly starts acting nice all of a sudden, especially after periods of coldness, criticism, or complete indifference. One day, they're distant. The next, they're overflowing with compliments, praising your work, your attitude, your character. They might even bring up old memories or act like they've always been in your corner. But if you pause just for a moment, you'll feel it, that something's off. This kindness doesn't feel earned. It feels out of place. And most of all, it feels timed. Because it is. Here's the truth. Sudden flattery often comes before exploitation. Manipulators rarely start with demands. They start with praise. Because before they can use you, they have to soften you. They want to disarm your defenses, make you feel special, seen, even respected. But it's not about you, it's about them. The praise is bait, and once you're hooked, once your guard is down, comes the request, a favor, a concession, something that benefits them at your expense. You may think you're connecting. In reality, you're being played. This is where Stoic wisdom serves as a shield. Seneca once said, "Beware the man who tells you what you want to hear. He fears your judgment." That insight cuts deep. A manipulator doesn't want your honesty. They want your obedience. And flattery is their tool of choice. They don't praise you because they truly admire you. They praise you because they fear the strength of your discernment. By feeding your ego, they hope to blur your judgment. Stoicism reminds us to be grounded, to stay centered, no matter what storms of charm swirl around us. When someone's praise feels sudden, strategic, or too sweet to be sincere, it often is. Let me share a story. A man named Ethan had a co-worker who was notoriously competitive and dismissive. For months, this co-worker barely acknowledged Ethan's ideas. Then, one week, everything changed. Suddenly, he was complimenting Ethan's presentations, asking for his opinion, even inviting him to lunch. At first, Ethan thought maybe things had turned a corner, but just days later, the truth came out. The co-worker needed Ethan's support to get approval for a project. He didn't value Ethan's ideas, he valued Ethan's vote, and once he got it, he disappeared again, back to indifference. That praise, it wasn't admiration, it was manipulation in disguise. So how should you respond? First, slow down. When someone suddenly becomes overly kind, take a step back and observe. Is their praise specific, sincere, and consistent? Or is it rushed and oddly timed? Second, ask yourself, what do they stand to gain? Are they seeking connection or compliance? And finally, stay grounded. Your worth isn't defined by anyone's compliments, especially when they come wrapped in motive. Because at the end of the day, praise without integrity is just noise. And true strength lies in seeing through charm and holding the line, even when flattery tries to blur it. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a thank God and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 5. They fear losing their advantage. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive behaviors you'll ever encounter. Someone who suddenly starts acting nice all of a sudden, right around the time you begin setting boundaries or finally pulling away. Maybe you've grown tired of being the one who always shows up, gives too much, or tolerates too little in return. So you stop replying so quickly, you stop accommodating their silence. You begin to shift your energy toward yourself, and just when you're about to fully let go, suddenly they reappear with sweetness, warmth, and what feels like concern. But don't let it confuse you. This kindness doesn't come from reflection, it comes from fear. Here's the truth. People who've held power over you, whether emotional, social, or practical, can sense when that power starts to fade. When you begin reclaiming your space, they feel their grip slipping, and for some, that loss feels unbearable. They fear losing the control they once had, the comfort of your reliability, or the access they've always enjoyed without earning it. So what do? They become kind. Not because they've had a change of heart, but because they're trying to stop the shift. Their kindness isn't healing, it's a tactic to reel you back in before it's too late. Stoic wisdom reminds us that true character reveals itself not when people are in control, but when they're losing it. Epictetus said, "The desperate cling with sweetness to avoid the loss they once took for granted." It's a powerful truth. When someone realizes that your presence, attention, or loyalty is no longer guaranteed, they'll often turn to charm, not as a gift to you, but as a way to protect their position. And if you mistake their desperation for sincerity, you may fall right back into the same cycle you fought so hard to leave. Let me tell you about a man named Chris. He had a close friend who always leaned on him during hard times, but vanished when life was good. Chris began to notice the pattern and slowly started to create distance, fewer calls, more time invested in himself. Not long after, that friend began texting more, complimenting Chris out of nowhere, even offering to catch up and rebuild the bond. But Chris wasn't fooled. He saw what was happening. This wasn't an apology. It was a reaction to the fear of losing a one-sided connection. And when Chris didn't jump to reconnect, that friend disappeared again, proving it wasn't about the friendship. It was about control. So what should you do when kindness arrives just as you're walking away? First, trust your timing. You began pulling away for a reason. Second, measure their actions, not their tone. Have they truly changed, or are they just trying to regain what they're losing? And third, don't let temporary sweetness distract you from permanent lessons. Because at the end of the day, the person who fears losing their advantage will say anything to keep it, but the one who values your peace will never have to. Number 6, they're watching how you respond. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive behaviors you'll ever encounter. Someone who suddenly starts acting nice all of a sudden, especially after they've treated you poorly or taken you for granted. One moment, they were distant, dismissive, maybe even cruel. And now, out of nowhere, they're warm, thoughtful, engaging. They want to reconnect, to start fresh, to put things behind you. But slow down. Because this shift isn't always about genuine remorse, it's often about testing your response. They're watching you closely, not to reconnect, but to calculate what they can still get away with. Here's the truth. Some people don't return because they've changed. They return to see if you have. They want to know if you'll welcome them back without hesitation. No questions, no accountability, no boundaries. Because if you do, you've taught them something dangerous, that all it takes to erase the past is a smile and a few nice words. You've confirmed that your standards can be bent by familiarity, or worse, loneliness. They'll see that kindness, even when used manipulatively, is enough to reset the clock. And once they know that, what incentive do they have to respect you moving forward? This is where Stoic wisdom becomes essential. Marcus Aurelius once said, "To forgive is noble, but to forget without reason is naive." Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from anger, not surrendering your standards. The Stoics remind us to observe with clarity that just because someone acts differently now doesn't mean they deserve immediate trust. A Stoic doesn't just respond emotionally. They evaluate behavior, they look at motive, and most of all, they watch patterns, not moments. Let me share a story. A woman named Sarah had an old friend who vanished during one of the hardest periods of her life. No explanation, no support, just silence. Months later, after Sarah began rebuilding herself and sharing her journey publicly, that friend returned, with compliments, with praise, with warmth. "You're doing amazing. I miss you. Let's catch up." But something didn't sit right. Sarah paused. She didn't react emotionally. She asked questions. Where were you when I needed you? Why now? And, as expected, the friend deflected, got defensive, and eventually disappeared again. That moment told Sarah everything. It wasn't about her. It was about how much access that friend still had. So what should you do when someone suddenly starts acting nice? First, observe. Are they taking accountability or avoiding it? Second, don't hand out trust like a gift. Let them earn it through consistent action, not temporary charm. And third, know that how you respond tells them everything about your boundaries. Because at the end of the day, people are always watching, not just what you say, but what you allow. And when someone learns that a little sweetness can erase a lot of damage, they'll use it again. Protect your peace by making sure your forgiveness doesn't become permission. Number 7. They regret losing access to you. Let's talk about one of the most deceptive behaviors you'll ever encounter. Someone who suddenly starts acting nice all of a sudden, after they've pushed you away, disrespected your presence, or failed to value you when they had the chance. It usually happens after you've already started healing. when you've rebuilt your life, found peace, or simply stopped reaching out. That's when they show up again, sounding sweet, speaking gently, offering apologies that come wrapped in vague sentiments like, "I've been thinking about you," or "I miss how things used to be." But here's what you need to understand. Their niceness isn't about missing you. It's about missing access to you. Here's the truth. Some people don't realize your value until your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. While you were there, showing up, forgiving too much, making excuses for their behavior, they were comfortable. They had consistent access to your energy, your kindness, your loyalty, and they mistook it for something permanent. But once you pull away, once they feel your distance, they begin to panic. Not because they're suddenly enlightened, but because their source of emotional comfort, validation, or control is gone. And their niceness, it's not about reconnection, it's about regaining what they lost on their terms. Stoic wisdom teaches us to look beyond sentiment and into motive. Seneca said, "Do not be tempted by the return of what once broke you. Even softened blades still cut." That's the essence of it. Just because they return softer doesn't mean they've changed. Sometimes it's just a new tactic. They regret the loss of convenience, not the harm they caused. They regret losing your forgiveness, not the reasons they needed it in the first place. Let me tell you about a man named Mark. For years, he had a close friend who leaned on him constantly but never reciprocated the effort. Mark helped him move, supported him during job loss, even lent him money, none of which was ever acknowledged or returned. Eventually, Mark got tired. He didn't make a dramatic exit, he just stopped showing up. Months later, that friend reappeared with warmth and charm. "You've always been such a good friend, man. I really miss our talks." But Mark, now grounded, saw the pattern. The friend didn't ask how he'd been, didn't mention the unresolved debts. He just wanted things back the way they used to be. Why? Because he missed the benefits of access, not the friendship, not the accountability. So how should you handle it? First, don't let sweetness blind you to history. Second, ask yourself, are they acknowledging the damage or just trying to resume the dynamic? And third, remember that you don't owe anyone re-entry into your life just because they finally realized what they lost. Because at the end of the day, people often come back not because they care, but because they're uncomfortable without what you once gave freely. And if you let them. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.